Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lunch with Lisa. I have a special guest today, my wonderful client, Holly Johnson. Hi, Holly.
Hi, Lisa.
It's so wonderful to have you here. And thank you for doing this. I know these particular calls, when I'm able to interview clients, are so helpful for so many women because it gives them hope that they can also find love. And, I know that this is going to be such an inspiration to the women out there who are struggling and suffering like you were. I think before you came, before you found me, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, things were moving in the right direction, but I definitely felt there were some blocks about just helping me find the guy, or at least somebody who was a man instead of a guy.
right, right. I loved it when you said that, right? On our interview, I think that there were guys and then there were men.
Right. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
became a standing joke with my friends and then my family. If I went out on a date, they're like, "So, was he a guy or was he a man?"
That's wonderful. Well, let's roll back the tape. Let's go back to when you first found me and what made you, let's talk about like, where did you find me? How did
Yeah.
was it YouTube or Facebook or
I
Instagram?
I think it was either Instagram or YouTube. I'm a pretty loyal follower on YouTube because I do a lot of meditation and manifesting and visioning types of things. And I had been working with another dating coach and had made some progress, and things were always inching in the right direction, but I felt like there was this limiting belief or some block that just needed me to get over the hurdle. And had done a lot of self work. I had been on and off online dating, trying different sites, reworking my profile. And yet there was, I call it that indescribable little nothing that makes you go from going on dates to having meaningful dates. Or, when you meet men, that what I again, that indescribable little nothing that means everything. It's just like, I can't really describe why. But then you just start looking at things like your final five and all that you took me through, and you're starting to go, oh, and it was kind of that. I had several aha moments working with you for sure.
Well, so you found me like on Facebook, on YouTube, right? And what was it that jumped out at you? Like, what made you click on my ad? Because I know we're inundated with that stuff. There's so much stuff coming at us, but something stopped you and made you click on the ad and listen and watch my presentation.
Yeah, and I really think it was the presentation, because I went, okay, this isn't going to cost me anything. I mean, why not? Let's keep an open mind and go exploring. I was not finding, with my other coach. I felt like she was 25 years younger than I was, and I felt like I was being told to do instead of discovering what I needed from me personally in order for me to attract the right man and stop coming up with things that I should or shouldn't say to, like, what is it that I'm looking for? What is it that I need? And as you said, get off dating and find out who you are. And I thought I had a pretty good idea, but I knew that there was some limiting factors in there.
So you watched the presentation, and Holly, what was it about my presentation that made you say, I'm going to talk to her? Because something I know about you is that you are already a very enlightened woman. You come in with a lot of wisdom and knowledge. You even wrote a book about happiness. And yeah, I mean, you already are such a wonderful, optimistic, open hearted woman. And yet, this part of your life wasn't working. You were getting better, things were improving, but you still hadn't found the love of your life. What jumped out at you about that presentation and made you say, I want to talk to her, I want to get on a call?
I think it was just looking for a different perspective.
Mhm.
And I believe that there is a solution to everything. I don't look at things as problems. I look at things as opportunities.
Mhm.
Um, and I had nothing to lose. And, um, and it, I just felt like there was a connection with you, and it was a huge financial commitment for me. But I also um, I don't belabor things very long. I tend to follow my gut. It's just like, it's all part of the dating process, kind of saying, I need to keep an open mind. I need to keep exploring. I need to be open to the possibility. I'm not tied to any one thing, but I am tied. And I never, even on my hardest days, I always said, you know what? I just really believe that he's out there. And if nothing else, I need to stay true to what it is that I need and want versus putting some kind of timeline on it. And so my conversation with you, and I just went, you know, if I can find even just more about me that just makes me a more whole person and more comfortable with myself, then it's worth the investment. I mean, people spend ridiculous amounts of money doing self-medicating kind of things, and I'm like, if I'm going to invest in something, I'm going to invest in me, and then everybody's going to benefit.
Yeah, yeah. And you did whatever it was on that call, and it sounds like you really like you felt a resonance with me. You clicked with me. I'm more your age, right, than the other coach. What else, Holly? Is there anything else that I said on the call that made you think, wow, this could be different than what I'm already doing? It sounds like she could really help give me some insight or some answers and look at this in a different way. What was it? Do you recall on our introductory call? Because it is a huge investment.
Right. You know, I I can't remember specifically on the introductory call, but one of the things that I think really makes you stand out from other people is Benjamin. not to, not to dish you, Lisa, you're amazing, but what I really got out of this was the male's perspective. And what you brought to the table in your program was not only my own personal and other, clients or participants, kind of looking into your own past. And I know we can all do the deep dark dive a gazillion times and all that, but looking at the relationships and starting to see the patterns, and really your worksheets were really helpful there. But most importantly was to start understanding the way that men think. We all want them to think like we do. And it's like, but why, when you think about it from a logical standpoint, we don't need any more of us. We've got plenty of us out there. We need the balance, the yin and yang. And yet men don't understand how women think. And understanding that men just want us to be happy. It's like, wow. And then why aren't we communicating that to them in a meaningful way and understanding how they interpret things? And sometimes it's the subtlest twist of words, but there were a couple recommendations that you and Benjamin made to me in my dating, meeting my long distance guy that I'm dating a
Which
lot.
we'll
Right.
get into that in a moment because I want you to share how you met him, Holly, and all.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of little tweaks and things that we made that go on.
Yeah. They just presented it in a very non-threatening way to him or other men or whatever. And then also I just started saying, okay, let's take this to the next level. Like when I was working on my photos, having male input into it, having also in the books were huge. Attachment was a life changer for me.
Yeah.
I started understanding why I was reacting to things the way that I was, instead of feeling like something was wrong with me. It's just, no, this is just the way I am. And that enabled me to have a better coping mechanism when I started seeing it flare up, with the naked dater and, your frenemy and all that, and how to quiet that so that as I said in my book, moment over. We can take moments and not deal with them, and they turn into bad days or bad weeks or bad months. Let's quiet that negative talk in your head because you know what's going on now, instead of just wondering like, why am I this way? Why am I freaking out over this, or just feeling super anxious about something?
Yeah. So beautiful. So, um, you decided to do this. You clicked with me. Part of it was having Benjamin, right? The male perspective. And also, I'm guessing a piece of that too, Holly, is seeing Benjamin and me together, right? Like watching us interact and being able to see that interaction, see how even just how he responds to me, right? And all of that. But then you made that leap and it was a huge investment. Um, and you had, so you signed up and you said that besides the books, what else was it about the course? Because it really is kind of a step-by-step roadmap for finding love, right? I mean, we start you out by stopping the dating process, no dates in that first month. What was that like for you?
Initially, um, I it was kind of like, I like attention. I'm that person, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, so like I'm not doing anything, but yet it enabled me to do more because I just started getting comfortable with, the 2-second eye contact and starting to flirt and getting comfortable with that in a non-threatening environment. Because when you're not dating, there's no end goal. You're just out there seeing how people respond to you and making the eye contact. And I would just say, okay, I need to go out and do this like 6 times today, and not just with men and women, just see how people respond when you get into the container with whoever, even if they're just walking down the trail, and then you see some people light up like a light bulb, and other people just aren't even remotely available, and you just start saying, oh, okay, have a nice day, but that's not on me, that's on you. And starting to get that, not taking everything so personally, and just saying, you know what, I choose to be happy. If you choose to not be happy, that's fine, but not on my time anymore.
So you used that very first skill and you just kept practicing it to the point where you were able to smile at people and men, women too, and just realize that everybody's in their own world. But you started looking up and looking around and connecting and opening up more. And it sounds like that first month just gave you a chance to hit the pause button and reset, right? To focus on different things and not keep focusing just on how can I get male attention.
Right. Well, and the other thing, with the whole, signing up with you too is, I was, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. And I felt like I was doing a lot of the same thing and expecting a different outcome. And I'm like, how many times am I going to change the online dating site or whatever? It's just like, I just felt like I was just kind of playing at this instead of figuring out how to manage it, and
Mhm.
and then after, like, the first couple days, it was such a relief, and then it was really fun just to kind of play dating. It's like, we play house, we play school or whatever, and you just start getting more comfortable with it. You get more comfortable with yourself, how
Yes.
you show up, how people respond to you. And there would be like, wow, that just like lit would light me up too. And we know that when you're around people that are lit up, you light up.
Yes.
So
And so it sounds like it was a great break and it gave you a chance to reconnect to yourself, and then to do that first month of material, which is pretty intense.
yeah.
So talk about the first month of the course, the actual coursework, the calls, the Q&A calls. Like, what was that all like for you, Holly?
Well, it was, and that was another thing too that I really liked about in our initial interview, is that I was going to be around other women and get some group coaching, and misery loves company, but also, success loves company. And to hear and to see different women's challenges and to know that you're not alone, to offer some, words of encouragement. And, in some ways it was validating for me because I realized that the work that I had done previously and starting into the course was really starting to pay off, where I just felt more comfortable with who I was. And, the biggest catalyst for me was I finally stopped focusing on everything that worked in my previous relationships and started focusing on the things that were missing. I'm a very optimistic person. I don't like dwelling on negative. For all intents and purposes, I had a very amicable breakup with my husband of 26 years. It was very painful, and it was my choice. But when I started doing the relationship patterns and things like that, I started seeing these big voids. And when I ended up doing my final five, you know, if I went on a date with my ex-husband, he wouldn't even make it past the first date. Um,
Wow.
and we had a good marriage. I mean, the first 5 years were a little challenging, but you know, he was the right man for me at that point in my life, and
Mhm.
he helped me elevate myself. And then I kind of got on the bullet train, and he decided he wanted to be in the trunk of a car, so that didn't work out so well. But um, when I started doing that, that really helped a lot.
So looking at what hadn't worked in past relationships and seeing the patterns, right? The choices that you had made and the things that didn't work, and then looking forward and developing your final five, which in my course are the five things you must have in a partner. I think a lot of people who watch my presentation and don't do this work with me, Holly, they think that those are like the five things, they're five must haves. But what they don't realize is these five things are based on their past, not on their, it's what they want, have to have in a future partner, but they don't arrive at the final five by just inventing them out of nowhere. You went through a very, very intense third week of that course to get to those final five, right?
Right. Yeah. And, to come up with your wish list of everything and then just kind of narrow it down so that you have a point of focus. And, I wrote that in the letter to the love of my life. Um, That was, and I just started reading it every night. I'm like, it's like anything, it's repetitive and you just kind of reinforce that. And I love it. Also made it easier to start looking at profiles of different men. And it was like a light bulb going off. Oh my God, totally avoidant, very overly anxious. And then just kind of starting to see the kind of secure things, and then also using that in my own kind of, because I have an anxious tendency, even though I'm a relatively secure person. It just kind of like, whoa, oh my God, I have an anxious attachment style. And then saying, okay, what would secure Holly do in this situation? And just to kind of quiet that and, in the noise in our head.
So you went back out in the dating world and you had a spectacular result.
Well, actually, it happened when I was not dating.
Right. I remember. It happened when you were being audacious and connecting with people. And maybe partly why it happened was because you weren't dating and you were just open and and connecting with people, with men, but you really had a spectacular outcome. Do you want to share that with everyone?
Sure. So I was, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks into the program. I'm not even sure I've done my final five yet, but I had made a commitment to doing two things socially. I was a new resident to the Vale area, even though I've been coming here for 30 years. And so I made a commitment to do two networking things professionally and two networking things socially. And because we all operate in our own little tunnel. And so there was this fun run at the Weston Athletic Club. And I had a friend of mine that I had dated previously, but we're just good friends. And and I don't like running at the end of the day. I'm always a morning workout person, and it was starting to rain. I'm like, oh God, please rain, then I don't have to go. Anyway, long story short, I didn't want to go, but I told myself I had to. And I showed up, and my energy was in the tank. And, I'm just going, okay, just do it or whatever. And I got through it. And I remember this tall guy in an orange sleeveless shirt kind of running by me. And there was a kind of after party afterward. And I just started striking up conversation with people. Hey, do you live here? Just to kind of put myself out there. And there was a very attractive man and a couple of women, and started with them. My friend left, and then I was leaving, and walked by the orange shirt guy at a high top. And I just said, hey, I'm Holly, who are you? And he said, I'm David. And I'm like, do you live here? And he said, no. He goes, I've actually tried to stay here, but I'm staying at the Sheraton from Dallas. Long story short, we went into the lobby. It started to rain. An hour later, I'm like, I need to get home and go to, make dinner. And I'm walking away, and he was very curious, asked a lot of questions. And I'm going, God, I wish I had a business card. I'm like, you do in your car. So, and he had sat down in the lobby. And so I went down to my car, grabbed one of my feel good mindset cards. And so I walked up, and he was still sitting in the lobby, kind of lit up when I walked up to him. And I said, hey, I just thought I'd drop off one of my feel good cards. And he goes, oh, is this your book? And I went, well, yeah, on one side. And so anyway, he asked me if I had any plans for dinner. I said, not really. And so we agreed that we were going to go home, and had dinner that night. Found out he was there on a motorcycle, went for a motorcycle ride the next day, and then he left the next morning. And when he kissed me goodbye, I was like melting. And I walk inside my condo, and I'm like, really, universe? Second to last night here, huh? And the closest we came to talking about seeing each other again was, I say, well, if you ever find yourself back in the mountains, you've got my number. And he said, yeah, maybe I'll just kind of keep this Colorado mountain thing, in mind for next summer. And I'm thinking, next summer? Like, seriously? That's like a year. I'm not going. And I just took a deep breath. And then I followed the guidelines of, text to flirt and confirm a date, and not to try to get to know somebody, and kind of told him that, he had a chilly morning. And I was like, wow, trying to send some, body heat your way. And he goes, and anyway, we started flirting. And then he called me out of the blue just to hear my voice. And then we started video chatting, and then conversations about when you come to Dallas started coming up.
Wow. And so what's happening? What's happening there?
So I went to Dallas. I had a 24-hour rule. And he said, when you come to Dallas, he was at a dealership, and there was one of those big red bows that you usually put on the back of a really expensive car. He drives an Audi. And he said, look what I have for you when you come to Dallas. And I'm like, oh, I love presents. And I said, so when would you like that Dallas thing to happen? And you and Benjamin had coached me on the long distance thing when we were kind of texting and starting to talk. And you said, if you asked me for another meetup, I would probably say yes. And he had brought up the long distance thing. And I said, and along the distance lines, I always believe if there is a will, there's a way. And he responded back, there's definitely a will, so I think we'll find a way. And I'm like, I love that word we in there. It's not about me or about him. It was about we. And that was just all these subtle things that he just did that made him very kind and considerate. And so we had the conversation about coming to Dallas, and he said, I'd really he said, so when can you get here? And I said, well, I happen to have a flight that's connecting through Dallas on the way back from Florida. And he goes, when's that? And I said, early October. And he goes, well, could you come for the weekend? And I said, well, thank you very much. So I followed your advice. Thank them. Don't immediately put them out of the thing. Appreciate the invitation. And I said, but I have a 24-hour rule. And he goes, well, what's that? And I said, you have to have 24 hours together before you have 48. And he goes, okay, so what are you doing on the way out?
Ah,
I said, well,
sweet.
I'm flying Southwest, so I think I can change my ticket to fly to Dallas.
Oh,
And so I was advised not to stay with him. He set the parameters that he would totally respect me, and that, he said, I will totally respect your boundaries because I really want you to come back.
so Holly, I want to pause you because you really received the coaching. You know, can we speak to that for a
Sure,
moment? You were
absolutely.
really wonderful. A lot of people jump in, they sign up for the course, but then they meet somebody, and you really listened to our guidance and you followed it. Can you speak a little bit about the advice that we gave, the guidance that we gave, and how that really played out for you?
Um, you know, I'm a running coach, and I'm a business coach. If you follow the plan, you will succeed. If you don't follow the plan, you probably will not succeed. You may have glimmers of hope, but also being in the non-dating, and then also when David and I started communicating, is keep dating.
Mhm.
Don't you and really use you and Benjamin as the guiding thing to bring you back to reality, and to make sure that you're not being too impulsive, and really addressing your own things, like the the no sex boundaries or whatever, and following that, and because it does change the dynamics a lot, and women always, 99% of the time, you're the coach on this one, think it means more than it does to the guy.
Right, right. And so you slowed it down. You followed the wisdom to keep dating other people. In the past, if you hadn't been working with us, would you have just rushed into that with him?
Oh, absolutely. I was really attracted to him. And I mean, to his credit too, he really um, adhered to the boundaries. But that's part of it too, is that, if they're not doing that, if they're not respecting you, and say, this is too soon for me. And to have that to say, and we've talked about some of my anxiety about, the first 24 hours, and in a weekend there, and in all that. And he raised some too. I mean, he has an exchange student living with him. So that was a little odd for me too. I've never dated a man or stayed at his house when there had been anybody under the age of 18, let alone an exchange student that I'd never met before. So we talked about that, and those all became signs of, you know, is this moving in the right direction? Is this somebody that you can rely on? Does he meet the final five day in, day out? Even if there's a question mark, David always came around. The question mark was more my head than what was going on between us.
Yeah, and it was such a like, what I love about your story is that you really did not like test the boundary, but those boundaries are there to test, or for a man to show that he is really willing to respect your boundaries and move at a certain pace with you, and to also for you to see that he really was sincere, because you two just met, and here you are how many months later, and
It's only been 3 months.
it's 3 months, but both of you have kept showing up. And what happened over Thanksgiving?
Well, he and Rodrigo came out for the week, and it was great. And I also have made the commitment that when we're together, we're together. And we, if some work comes up, but to really, I'd always made work a priority. And so the skiing was not great, but they were here on ski vacation, so we skied every day, and we went out a few times. He paid for things as a chivalrous man would do, and I cooked and welcomed them into my home, and we all kind of chipped in and helped make Thanksgiving dinner. And Thanksgiving was awesome because the Cowboys were playing, and I have an open air kitchen, and so I could cook. And then I was like, okay, I need some prep help. And they're like, okay, David's up first, Rodrigo's up second.
But
So
Holly, one of the things was him coming out for Thanksgiving,
right,
right? You had been going to Dallas to see him, and it was a big thing that he was willing to come your way, right?
right. Yeah.
And
It was a big expense too. And it was a lot easier for me to go to Dallas on my own. And I liked being there, but I also wanted to see how he would react being in my home, because part of it is involving him in my life. I love being part of his life, and just to kind of see, it's always, I don't really like the word test, but you always have to kind of, it's always the next step, and you just have to kind of roll with it.
mhm.
And we'd gone 5 nights together, and so it wasn't really about them being here for a week. It was just kind of how we would meld together over time. I was
And
very
also that he would do it, that you had been going to see him, and what a big thing it was, not just for him to come himself, but also to bring the foreign exchange student. I mean, that was no small thing
right.
to
Yeah.
do that. And it meant, I'm guessing it meant a lot to you that he was willing to come out and spend that week with you.
Yeah, and he brought it up initially about coming for Thanksgiving, and then he has some um, he doesn't, he's not as impulsive on decisions as I am, and but I really avoided doing my butt, like giving him an out and just saying, when I on my last trip there, I said, I'd really love it if you would come out for Thanksgiving with Rodrigo. It would mean a lot to me. And I just stopped it there instead of, but if it's really expensive, and you start coming up with all these excuses. And I'm like, no, just say, and that was really on the advice of you and Benjamin, ask for what you want, and then
Stop.
quiet. Don't keep talking. They don't like that. And just let, and then I did nudge him along, and I just said, when he wasn't making a decision, and I saw, plane tickets getting more expensive, and I said, I left a voicemail message for him, and I just said, I understand this is a big ask. It's a big, and it's not inexpensive for you to come here, and just know that I really just want to spend Thanksgiving with you and Rodrigo. And if Colorado doesn't work out on this trip, that's fine. I'm willing to come. I'm more than happy to come to Dallas. But I wait, and I just said, but we need to make a decision, because airline tickets are not getting any cheaper. And that night he was booking his tickets.
Ah, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Holly, yeah, it's been an incredible, incredible journey. And you kept dating. You were online, you dated other people, you got your photographs. I remember seeing your pictures. Benjamin wrote your profile, and you just kept following what you came on the call, on our group Q&A calls, and asked, what do I do? How do I say this? And then you put it into practice.
Yeah, and if I had an advice for anybody, it's a big investment, but you also need to make the investment in yourself, and to say, I am worth this. And I really made this my priority at a time when I was also going through a big work transition. But everything impacts everything else. The more confident you become on dating and interacting with strangers and seeing them light up and how they respond to you is going to transcend into your work life, into your personal life. I dealt with a sticky situation with my sister that I probably wouldn't have come in with the same perspective on. And to sit back and to start understanding, we all need to listen more, and we all need to try to understand, and the biggest takeaway for me was I started understanding how men think and why they do the things that they do. We're not going to change them, but when you start having that understanding, it really helps us women say, I need to be accepting of who they are in the same way we want them to be accepting of who we are.
Ah, yes.
And that's what you and Benjamin do. You know, it's like, it's not perfect. You know, he has days when I can tell that he's not feeling well or whatever, but we hit the pause button before we say no. And to say, and that's one thing I really appreciate about David is I tend to just blurt things out of my mouth or whatever. Yeah, sure, why not? And you know, he thinks about things. And just to say it's okay, nothing's changed. I mean, boyfriend girlfriend conversation came up, and I used your cue. Hey, you know, and he actually asked me when we got in the car to drive to Denver, "What are you thinking?" And I'm going. I looked at him and I said, "Wow." He goes, "Kind of a loaded question, huh?" And I go, yeah, I thought that was the one that women are never supposed to ask guys. And he goes, "Well, you know, we got 2 hours." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm thinking I would really like to call you my boyfriend. What do you think about that?"
Yes.
And he hit the pause button and he said, and I didn't interject. I'm like, "Holly, just zip it up. Just see how he responds."
Perfect.
And he goes, "Does that mean I go," he goes, "Well, I'm not sure." And he said, "You're the only woman I've been with since his divorce." And I'm not sure if I'm still shopping. And he looks at me and I'm going, "Good thing I am who I am, because someone will totally go off on that." He goes, "Yeah, probably not the great choice of words." And I said, "Do you want to date other people?" And he's like, "No." And I said, "You know, you can if you want."
Ah,
And he said, "So would that mean I would call you my girlfriend?" And I said, "If you want to." And he goes, "You know," and he, you know, there were pauses in there, and he goes, "That's a big commitment." And I just got quiet and just let him be. And you know, I had moments on the drive down, and I just went, it's his decision. This isn't me to force him into it or guilt him into it or get angry or anything. I've said how I feel. And so on my way back, we went to Denver and spent, you know, time there and before they flew out. And then I have a friend who looked at my photos, and he and his fiance are, I coach them for running, and he's just he's a guy. So I said, "Hey, Michael, I got a dating question for you," and I told him what happened, and he said, um, "Sounds totally in character with him. He's just thinking about it. You know,
mhm.
this is a big commitment for him, and so that's the way he's looking at it. Not He's not taking it lightly or, sure, why not? I'll just call you my girlfriend." And he said, "You did." You may not have gotten the answer that you won, but you didn't get the answer you didn't want. So, and then I said, "Yeah, you know," and I go, "He's already checked in with me. He already called me to see, you know, if I was back, and, you know, to thank me for the week." And he goes, "He's fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it." So again, I think it's great having the male perspective,
Mhm.
both to you and Benjamin, but also to other women. If you have some male friends that, you know, you can talk to, ask them for their input, have them look at your photos, ask for them when you're not sure about a reaction, you don't have access to you and Benjamin, because it's so subtle, but it makes all the difference in the world.
Well, yeah, and you handled it beautifully. You handled it perfectly. You gave him the space to make the decision on his own. You didn't try to force it when you didn't get the answer you wanted or that you would have hoped for. You just said, you can date other people if you want to. That's okay if that's what you feel you need to do. And Holly, that's going to build confidence with him. If he really does have feelings for you, which I think he does, right? But it will build his confidence in you and in the relationship, because he would have felt respected and like you weren't trying to take his freedom away from him, which is what women do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we don't get the answer we want, we start to throw a fit or get emotional or pull away or whatever. And you really handled it perfectly. So now you get to sit back and see what happens, right?
Yeah, and you know, as my friend Michael said, you know, he's probably, my guess is that he's looking for some reassurance that, you know, if you're not getting exactly what you want, you know, David's brought this up before, you know, so what happens when I don't make you happy anymore? And I said, we talk about it, you know, and I said, you know, I'm not, because he made this comment after reading my book that I was, you know, goes, were you like, it seems like you're kind of searching for happiness. And I said, yeah, there were times in my life for sure about that. And I just traveled or did other things. And then my friend Michael said, you know, he's probably just looking for some reassurance because you've done a lot with your life. And that, you know, if things just don't go your way, are you just gone? And so just be you, you know, continue to reassure him. The more reassurance that you give him, the more comfortable he's going to be that this is the right decision. He's looking for inconsistencies. And so when if you start being inconsistency, that's going to give him more doubt than
Exactly.
if you just say, hey, you know, we're just who we are. And I just responded the same way that I did, and he's reacting the same way. And it doesn't really matter whether we're calling each other boyfriend or girlfriend. It is what it is. It's a title, it's a piece of paper. And, you know, at some point we all have
Well,
to.
I'm going to pause you. At some point, you do have to fight. You know, at some point, there does have to be a commitment.
Yeah.
And if he does want to go out and date other people because he is recently divorced, you're the first person he's dated, right? Out of his divorce.
Yeah, but he's 3.5 years out of divorce, and he spent a week on Bumble and hated that. And you know, he's done a lot of things.
I get all of those things, but at some point, there does have to be a commitment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, there does. But I know you handled everything perfectly, and you're giving him space to make his own decision without pushing him. And, you know, you'll know when the time is right. You'll know, but I wouldn't, you know, I would also, if I were you, Holly, you have to see forward movement, right? You've got to continue to see that the relationship is moving forward and that you're bringing your lives together.
Right.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Holly, what would you say to women? We know that this is a big investment. And as you've said, it's a big investment. But to a woman who's really on the fence, who feels like, oh my God, like that's a lot of money to invest in myself, what would you say to that woman if it was a friend of yours who was thinking about doing the course and she was really concerned? What would you say to her about making this investment?
Make sure you're ready for the commitment. It's like anything in a relationship, and that I think the part of this process is you find out, or women find out, if they're really ready or not, and that whatever, it's worth it if you're willing to commit to the worksheets and the program and all that, and to say, you know, if I was, you know, I think you said this to me, you know, if this meant that you were going to meet the man of your dreams, would you say it was worth it? Absolutely. I mean, you can't guarantee anything, but I can say that you will learn a lot about yourself. You will become definitely more self-confident, and you will start understanding why men do the things that they do and why you do the things that you do. And that understanding is huge. And when you think about the investment that we all make in whatever's, you know, this is a value. not everybody, and I don't know if David's going to be the one and only, but I know what I'm looking for, and what I need in order to feel fulfilled. And if on a piece of paper he would not be the guy that I thought, we have definitely come from different viewpoints on a lot of things, but it's how he makes me feel and the way he pays attention, is kind and considerate, and literally fills the gaps of what was missing in my other relationships.
So you see that this is a totally different kind of relationship, and you're showing up differently than you have in the past. And it sounds like, just from what you've shared, Holly, and how beautifully you've handled these situations, and even just hearing what you said and how you said it, I can hear how much you learned about how to ask for what you want from a man, the right way to say things, how to zip it and give them the space, right? Not to over talk, all that anxiety that you used to have. I mean, it sounds like you've come so far.
Yeah.
In this process.
If we give them a butt, they're going to take it.
Yeah.
They're guys,
Right.
They're human beings.
Yep. So you got to know when to say it and stop talking.
And let them make their own decision and just accept them for who they are. I mean, they want to make you happy, and they want to be accepted for who they are.
Yeah. Oh, Holly, you've made my week. I am so thrilled for you. It has been such a joy to have, to be your coach on this journey. And, for me, it is just miraculous to sit back and see, how I can share my gifts and, everything that Benjamin and I have created together, and have women like you who are so, who come in already with so much, already you had so many pieces of the puzzle. And it's just lovely to see, how we were able to pass our knowledge and our wisdom on to you, and to hear what you did with it. We do have a question here that I wanted to share with you. Somebody had asked, she said, interested in your comment about this guy. I don't know. I can't really understand, Joanne. I think there are some typos here, so I can't really understand your question. Interested in your comment about this guy, something in what was missing. Can you give an example? Joanne, you'd have to repost your question. I can't understand it. Filling in. She said, I'm interested in your comment about this guy filling in what was missing. Can you give an example?
Well, my final 5 are trustworthy, financially secure, loves and adores me, kind and considerate. Is that 5?
I think there's one more.
Well, anyway, that, really start focusing on the things that were missing in previous relationships, or your predominant one, like my 26 marriage or whatever. And to say, because, I was told I'm super active. I'm not going to date anybody I'm not attracted to. I'm not going to date anybody who's not active. I mean, I'm more competitive than David is, but we have the similar interests. So my lifestyle interests, are really compatible. And so, in those missing things, think about the things that were lacking in your previous relationship, and the relationship inventory will totally pinpoint what was missing. And then to really kind of focus on those. And that's how I pulled out my final 5 from my wish list, because I kept being told, you don't have to worry about, anybody who's not active, you're not going to date. It's just never going to work. So.
Yeah. So Joanne, this is a process that my clients go through in week 3 of this 12-week course. And I have them do an inventory or a history of all of their relationships, including their mother and father. And then from that history, we look at repeating patterns. And it's very in depth, and it helps them see patterns that they may have been missing, places where my clients have been settling for less than they really wanted. And then the final 5 are the 5 things based on their history that they can no longer settle for. They must have. And so those are the things that we're missing. But it's a week-long process that's quite in depth and emotional for a lot of women, because it goes very deep and gets them to look at some things that they may really have been not seeing in their past. So Holly, thank you, honey, for being here and for sharing your time and your experience with, my listeners and with, the women that come on these calls. And I'm so grateful to you for doing this. It means the world to me.
That was my pleasure. And I remembered the 5th one was emotionally available. Like, how did I forget that one? That was like the top of the list. Anyway, yes.
And David has all 5.
Yes. Yeah. And then also the letter to the love of my life literally describes our relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really one last thing is for all the women to notice that look at how grounded Holly is. She doesn't know if it's going to be the love of her life or if he's just a stepping stone, right? But what happens and what Holly exudes now is groundedness, self-confidence, and the anxiety that she may have brought into other relationships or had around dating in the past, really has subsided. She's very calm and she's not pushing David. And this is really one of the byproducts of this program, is exactly what Holly's going through. And I think you would say, Holly, that if it doesn't work with David, he's out there, right? You'll get right back out there and keep going because you're not quitting until you find him.
Well, if not this, something better, and everyone has, I was definitely on that thing, everyone got a little bit better and all that. And they all, relationships happen for a reason and they end for a reason. And if you can just embrace that as part of the process, yes, and to really focus on what you got out of it and what you learned and what was potentially missing from that, then you can it's just a fine-tuning process. And, my last bit of advice is, we're also critical of how men show up or don't show up in their profiles, but, look at your profiles. Like if you were going on a date, would you wear a sweatshirt and shorts? Never. So that photo should never be on your profile. I did that with my sister. I was like, you really need some good photos. So show up just like you want the guy to show up. If you go to the grocery store, even if you're in sweats, at least look put together in sweats instead of like you absolutely don't care about yourself and you don't care about how anyone's going to look at you, because you never know where you're going to meet them. It could be in the vegetable bin. It could be at that fun run that you don't want to go on, So do yourself a favor and show up just the way you want them to show up for you. And they will, for sure.
Holly, thank you so much, honey. And best of luck to you and David. Keep me posted, okay?
Okay.
And lots of love to you. Right. Thank you for coming on.
Happy holidays.
You too, honey. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.